airfare or to sign up for a credit card with a high annual fee or a higher APR because you think in return you're getting a certain value in terms of points. If they change that on you, it's something that we need to look at. Another issue that we're seeing is a confusion over what the points are actually worth. It's pretty rare for an airline to publish what they say the sort of dollar valuation of a mile or a point is, but in some cases we see that they have a certain implied value in terms of the flights you can get, or you can even use it to buy a sandwich on board, but then a completely different value if they're offering to sell those points back to you. We even see transaction fees when you're trying to transfer points that are sometimes more than the total value of the points you're transferring. Those are the kinds of things we want to have a clearer look at and get a real understanding of to make sure that customers, passengers are being treated fairly.
So transparency, rules should be clear. I mean, some worry that could be lost in fine print only a lawyer could love, but okay, our duty would be to read through. You said equitable, I think. What did you have in mind?
Well, we need to make sure that you know what you're paying for and that customers are treated fairly. Again, this is especially important because often the design of these points programs mean that you're not picking the product with the lowest price. Whether we're talking about a credit card fee or an airfare, you will consciously choose something that costs more because of the value you feel like you're getting with the points that come along with that. That means these points are something of real economic value. And like anything with real economic value, we need to make sure that any transactions around that are fair and above board.
Absent legislation, I guess, do you and or the CFPB have power beyond holding hearings to force transparency and fairness?
We do have a lot of authority here and a responsibility to address unfair or deceptive practices in airlines. And we're teaming up with CFPB because, of course, they have a lot of authority as it relates to financial firms and credit card companies. Now, we're not coming into this with any preconceived conclusions. We haven't decided on a rule or anything like that. But we do hear enough from passengers and customers about this that we've come to realize that in the same way that we have rules around refunds or other parts of the passenger experience, we need to be taking a look at this too.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
I also talked to the Transportation Secretary about who's going to pay for the Baltimore Bridge collapse. Marketplace.org is one way to hear that.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Rubrik. When cyber attacks put businesses at risk, Rubrik provides the power to bounce back fast. More at Rubrik.com. And by C3 Generative AI. Verified, traceable answers, secure, hallucination-free, LLM-agnostic, IP liability-free. Learn more at c3.ai.
Interest rates are embedded in just about everything, and market players listen intently for hints about when they might go lower. Yesterday, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, Mary Daly, spoke out east. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer was there and joins us now live. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, David. So Daly was at George Mason University's Mercatus Center in Northern Virginia. And like the other Fed officials who spoke this week, she implied that interest rates will stay high for longer as the Fed continues trying to dampen demand, slow the economy, and bring down inflation.
But more signs of cooling yesterday. The number of people filing new claims for unemployment benefits went up more than expected. You asked, Daly?
I did. I also asked her about last week's jobs report, which showed more signs of cooling. Asked her if she would be willing to cut interest rates if we got more bad news on jobs and the unemployment rate, even if inflation wasn't totally under control.
Right now we have a strong and healthy labor market, but absolutely have to keep an eye on that, continue to watch. So I'd say the recent readings, I have my eye on it, but I'm not yet worried.
Daly said she would not describe the labor market as fragile or faltering.
Markets are still positioned for interest rate cuts later this year. Did Daly weigh in?
Yeah, she said there's just too much uncertainty to make any projections right now. But she did say if unemployment was on the rise and inflation started cooling off again, it would be appropriate to lower rates. But if inflation stays stalled, she would not be in favor of a cut unless the labor market did start faltering.
Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer, thank you. The 10-year interest rate steady this morning, 4.5%, down from a peak of 4.71%. Actually, the current interest rate is 4.46%. Let me get that right. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up in the 3 to 0.4% range. We could be in for a new sriracha shortage after Huy Fong Foods, the California-based maker of the hot sauce that improves many a failed cooking experiment, announced it was halting production of its flagship red sauce till September. In a letter to distributors, the company said its crop of red jalapeno peppers were too green. The suggestion is the color, not the taste, is the issue. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio. Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.